Hi, welcome to the Fishing Dad. Today, we're going to build a battery box for our Garmin Striker 4. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to do another step in the Garmin Striker 4 install. In a previous video, we mounted the stand that holds the head unit. So if you missed that part of it, go back and check that out. We found a good spot for it, I think. We'll really know once we get it out on the water. But so if you haven't seen that video, I went out and bought a refurbished from Amazon Garmin Striker 4. It works. I hooked it up to the battery. I haven't had it out on the water yet, but we had it hooked up. And it functions properly. It comes with all the wires you need, any mounting hardware that it normally would come with. It comes with the transducer. Good to go. But we mounted this onto the kayak in a previous video. Go ahead and go back and take a look at it. Maybe I'll put a link up in the corner here. Yeah, but today, what we're going to do is we're going to make our battery box to house our battery. I went out on Amazon. I got one of these. It's a 10 amp hour battery, 12 volt. Just a little kayak battery. It has the spade connectors on it. This was $35. There was a lead acid battery that was $30. I thought extra $5. I'm gonna get this guy. So that's what we did for the battery. Came in a nice box, Nurmark. I also bought a battery charger to go with it. Just this little battery charger. It comes with a couple of different accessories. It comes with the ring loops. It comes with the clamp style leads. And then the plug-in is right on directly on the back. I'll show you real quick here. So see, it's just got the plugs right there on the back. You plug it in. You can set it for lithium or lead acid. And then it's got these little quick connects so you can change out the leads. We're going to change up. This is going to stay the same, just like it is. Like I said, it comes with the little quick connect on the one side, the clamps. I'm going to keep this as is in case I have another battery that I want to charge with it. And then it also came with one with the little ring loops with the quick connect on the other side. I am going to cut these off. I'm going to put spade connectors on there so it can connect to my battery. Also, I bought, this is just a little trickle charge deal. It's got like a 7.5 amp fuse in it. I'm also going to cut those off and put the spade connectors on to connect to the battery. And this is actually going to be a permanent deal. Maybe. Haven't decided yet. We'll figure that out as we go. So we're going to set up that whole charger deal. This charger, I'll probably just leave in the car. I probably won't take it out on the boat with me. There's really no reason to take it out on the boat with me. So We'll leave that as is, but I can show you how that's all going to work when we get that far. So, all right, so that's that. We bought a little waterproof box. This is called the Apache 1800. I bought this at Harbor Freight. I think it was like $12. And what's neat about this thing, and these will work great for a lot of different things. It's got these pick and pull sizable foam deals, so you can make a camera box out of it. You can put just about anything in there. I bet it might hold a small firearm if you cared. But that's going to be our battery box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to point you straight down at the desk here and kind of show you what I got going on. So let's do that. Pull this up. All right, can you see what we're doing here? It looks all right. Okay, so I just picked and pulled all the little cubes out, and I took the spares and I held on to the spares because if I have another box that I can use them in, I'm going to. But basically, you've probably all seen these before. They come out, they're little cubes. I don't know if you can see that. They're little cubes, and you just pluck them out into the shape that you want. So I held on to those. I don't know why. I hold on to stuff because I might find a use for it later. But basically, we're going to make a battery box out of this case. I pulled out everything that I thought I would need, and the nice thing is this battery slides right down inside there. I exposed the leads so they're not touching on here, and I can get everything in. But you can take this top layer out. I don't know if you can see. I'm going to take one more row out all the way across, and we're going to put a hole in the side of here to run our battery cables out, if that makes sense. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make the battery box and all of the connections and put it into the kayak. So we got that set up. I'll have to drill the holes on it. The other nice thing about this box, it's got a rubber gasket around the lid, so it comes down real nice and tight. Hopefully will be, I'm not expecting it to be 100% waterproof, but it'll be, relatively waterproof. I'm not going to worry too much about it at that point. So just a couple of things that we're going to need for this build. Some of the tools that we'll need. A drill, cordless drill. We're going to be drilling into our kayak. If you're not comfortable drilling into your kayak, then this video is probably not for you. I bought a 7/8 spade bit, and that's to put the hole in the kayak for the wires to pass through, and I'll show you the pass-through idea that I have for that. Marine shrink tubing to put around all of our crimp joints and anything else that it might be exposed. We want to cover those up. The nice thing about, for your kayak, I recommend getting the marine shrink tubing. They have a like a heat activated goo on the inside, and when you heat it up to shrink it, that goo kind of fills any voids and makes it nice and waterproof. So I got this at Harbor Freight. I think it was like $2. I'm estimating on the price between $2 and $2.50 for that. I have two separate electrical connector sets. They're both solderless connections. This one came with the crimper. So if you don't already have a crimper, I recommend getting this one because it has the crimper in there and it's got all of the stuff on there. So the crimper is here and it's got all kinds of different stuff on it that you would use for this kit. And the kit, the box isn't all that great because they cram that thing in there, so all of your connectors kind of get kind of all over the place because it deforms the lid. But for $3, $4, $5 or so, that works. It'll work out great. I mean, you can't expect much. And then this other one has basically got some of the same connectors in it, but this one comes with some zip ties, red and green zip ties. It also comes with some shrink tubing and some butt connectors, some spade connectors, ring connectors, all kinds of little things. I like to have these kinds of things around all the time. And some zip ties. We have zip ties in there. I got, you know, a handful of other ones that came with the other kit. Another thing that I thought might be useful are these zip tie mounting bases. I don't know if you can really see. Yeah, maybe you can. They do have a screw hole in the middle that you can put a screw to secure it to something, but they have a sticky adhesive back as well. And they have these little slots. Boy, that's going to be tough to see. They have little slots that you can pass a zip tie through so you can secure things down. These are all mostly going to be in places that you're not going to be able to see them. So I'm not concerned with the color. So we've got those. Now for my pass through, what I was looking for is they're called cable glands. And what they are, they usually put them on the backs of washers, dryers, different appliances, that type of stuff. And it makes kind of a water-resistant seal. I couldn't find any of those locally. I would have had to order them. And I didn't want to wait for them. So what I did, I went over to Fleet Farm to see if they had them. They don't. So I ended up getting... this is, let's see, a 1/2-inch PVC terminal adapter. So basically what it's designed for is you put your PVC conduit in this end, and then you can screw this on and glue it all together. Well, this is a female adapter. This is the male adapter. And they both have threads on the female adapter, they have threads on the male adapter, and they just screw together. Okay, so my idea was to drill the hole in the side of my box and one in the kayak, and put this on the inside of the box, put this on the outside of the box, so I have a way to pass my cables through. And then to make it water resistant, I'm going to fill the rest of the void with some silicone sealant. So that's the idea for that. I did get a couple of little washers that possibly could fit in there, these little rubber washers. I don't know that I'm going to use them. I might just for sealing up the threads. But we'll figure that out as we go, see if we even need to use those. So I'm gonna get some stuff ready here. When we come back, I'll have you pointed down at the desk, and we'll be stripping wires, drilling holes, and getting right into it. Okay, so we're down here, got our battery box with our battery in it. We've got our sacrificial cable with the quick connect on that we're gonna take apart and add some spade connectors to. We've got our spade connectors, and we've got this guy. We'll worry about the charging setup and the connection setup in a little bit, but let's start right here with this box. So let's set this aside for now. Well, yep, we're gonna set that aside for now. We'll take our battery out and we'll set that aside as well. So this top piece I have set up just perfect for my battery. I might pluck a couple more of these little cubes out. We'll see how that works. But the second one down, I want to make, and see how these little cubes, they just pull off. We're going to pull these off. come on. There we go. Pull these off so we have somewhere to route our cable. Okay, so see how that just pops right out, and they're just little cubes, so you can customize it any way you want. So now that will go in. Our battery, it sits in there with our spade connectors at the top up here. So we're going to take our sacrificial deal here, and we're going to figure out about how much we want hanging out. And I'm thinking I want, you know, a good 5 or 6 inches hanging out. Can you see that? Yep. 5 or 6 inches hanging out. I'm going to take a little bit of blue painter's tape and just stick it on there about where I want it, just as a placeholder. And I'll just put a little flag on there for now. Now, once you've figured out about where you want your hole, I'm going to take this out, and we're going to take a tiny little drill bit. And we're going to make a pilot hole. Now you could measure down to where you think you want it on the inside and pop it through on the outside, but I'm just going to go, yeah, right about there. I'm just going to drill right through the side. And we'll take our drill bit and set that aside, put it away, because we're done with that. We might use that to drill a pilot hole in the kayak once we get that far. But then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take all of these paddings out, and I'm going to keep them in order. So I know how they go back in. I'm going to take all of these paddings out. This is so that the battery doesn't bang around in there, and if you don't care about your battery banging around in there, go by all means skip all of this and just get a regular battery box or like an ammo can. So once I've located my hole on the inside or on the outside, I'm just going to use my 7/8 spade bit, because that's the size that we need for our pass-throughs. And just go nice and slow. You don't want to burn or melt the plastic. Until it pops through. We're done with that for now, and I think we're done with the drill bit too. One thing that I did do for my pass-throughs is I drilled a, let's get rid of this mess here. I drilled a practice hole into a piece of HDPE. You could do it in a piece of wood too, it doesn't really matter, but this hole right here, I drilled that hole to make sure that it was the right size hole. And the last thing I want to do is make the hole too big. So like I was showing you before, this large one's going to go on the inside, the smaller one's going to go on the outside, and it's just going to screw together. And then you can tighten it down really, really well. And that's going to have our wires with our spade connectors passing through. Right? But before I do that, I want to deburr this hole a little bit. So we're just going to use a little razor blade and go from the outside. Ooh, this sounds like good plastic, like maybe a glass fiber reinforced plastic. I don't see any plastic markings on it anywhere. Feels like a glass fiber reinforced nylon, maybe like an ABS. And if you have a deburring tool, that would work too, but I don't have one here with me. And we're just going to clean up the burr, some of the little melted flashing off of it. I don't know if you can hear that. You can hear that kind of crunchy sound. That's the glass fiber reinforcement. That's good. They do that with power tool casings, like power drills, plastics that they blow mold or that they injection mold. They'll put glass fiber reinforcement in there to make it a little bit stronger, a little bit more rigid and durable. So now that we've got that cleaned up, right, I'm gonna put my padding back in. All of my formed up padding, and we're just going to double check, make sure everything kind of fits up well. Remember, I want the big one, the big long one on the inside, and a little short guy on the outside. And make sure my battery fits in there good. Yep. Okay. I just realized I need to pull a couple more of these little cubes out of this bottom deal here. And pull a couple more of these cubes out of here. And then, so the edges are not perforated. But in order to get around that coupling that I put in there, I'm gonna have to snip out that. I don't know if you can see in there. Let's turn this around. Maybe you can see what I'm doing on this edge a little bit. So see how that coupling sits in there? We're gonna stuff that stuff down in there. And I might put a little bit of glue on to hold all these layers together, but I don't think that's necessary. We'll use a pencil to kind of stuff that down in there. So now that fits pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with that. So once again, our battery will sit in just like that. Once we modify our little wires here, those will connect onto our battery and come out the terminal hole. And we've got quite a bit of extra cable, which is fine. We want that about halfway through. And like I said, we're going to fill up that hole with silicone. So, but just the back side, this back side, I don't think I need to fill the outside with silicone. That way we can remove it if we have to, and it's not siliconed together. Does that make sense? Cool. So now we've got our hole drilled. We've got all that all set up. Let's take our battery and our battery box aside. Okay. And we'll focus on the wiring of this. Now I know that on my plug, this is the black wire, this is the red wire. And I know that because this is the wire that came with the charger. And if I plug it in, right, keep that wire flat, I could follow it all the way down and it comes out to my black side. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we've got some red shrink tube, and some black shrink tube. I will cut those to length, but first things first, let's cut these ends off. And we're only going to do one at a time so that we can keep them straight. So I'm going to do the red side first. I'm going to cut the red end off. Now those are trash. You can't really reuse those. Did you even see me cut that thing off? Yeah. Okay. We're going to cut the red end off and find the appropriate stripper. Get a little turn and pull. No. Okay, that wasn't it. Go to the next one down. This stripper might be garbage too, so if that is the case, I'll show you another way. Yeah. I do have another stripper somewhere, but we're going to show you how I do it normally. Just take a little lighter, get it hot, and just peel it off with your fingers. Now the spade connectors that I have, they are not color coded. Both of them are blue. See, that one is blue, this one is blue, they're both blue. So what I want to do is we're going to take a little bit of this shrink tube, just a small little section. We're going to feed that on. Run it all the way down so it's out of our way for now. And we're going to take a little bit longer piece of the marine shrink tube. We're also going to shove that on. And get that out of our way. Yep, that's the way I want to do it. Okay, so this wire might be a little too thin for this terminal, so we're going to fold over our wire to make it a little bit thicker and stick it in. Take your crimpers and you see the little blue dot. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a little blue dot. And because this is the blue connector, we're going to use that part of the crimper to crimp it on. Now, when I stick them in, I like to leave a little bit of the copper sticking through. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see it, but I like to have a little bit of the copper sticking through to the inside so that I know that it's seated all the way through. And just give it a crimp. And it's good and secure. Okay. Now, take my marine shrink tube and I put it all the way around. All the way down and around it. And we'll shrink it on. Now this is the marine shrink tube, so it's got that kind of hot gluey kind of goo on the inside. And you can tell, you can kind of see it's kind of glossy at the end there. So that's going to keep it nice and watertight. So just keep your flame moving around. Don't want to burn your wires. Let that cool for a second. Now, remember the red piece. We're going to put that up and over it. Now remember, that's so that we can tell which lead is our positive and which lead is our negative. And we're just going to shrink that on. There. So now we've got our one lead done. That's our spade lead for the positive. And we're going to go ahead and snip off the black lead. Now the black lead, we won't need the red because that way we know which is which. And we're just going to do this one real quick. So you can see kind of the flow. Completely off. You just give it another little hit from, and just give it a little twist. Heat shrink tube on. Fold over our wire so that it fits better in our connector. And we'll stick it in and crimp it. I like to give it a little tug. The heat shrink will also add a little bit of stress relief on that too. So I like to run the heat shrink up almost as far as I can. We don't want to impede the spade connection, but so you got your heat shrink tube on. We're going to shrink it down. Move your lighter around. You can use a heat gun, that's fine. I find it easier and quicker to heat shrink with a lighter. So that's on, that's done. One's longer than other because I screwed up a couple of times. But that's all right. It doesn't really matter how long it is. Now, if you wanted to, you could wrap some electrical tape around these two to keep them together. I don't know that you need to. So the next step would be to feed these into here up to our blue tape. We'll take our battery box, feed our quick connect through. Through our hole. You can do it either way, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter actually. So it appears that we can feed that through anytime we want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of silicone, and I'm just going to put it on the outside edge of this so that when I screw it in, it creates a good seal. So in our battery box, we'll pull this foam out of the way so that you don't get it all full of silicone. And pop that in, screw it into place. Let's pull all of our foam out for now. And then that silicone kind of squishes out. You can clean it up if you like. It's the inside of a battery box. Nobody's ever going to see it. I don't think it's that important to clean that up. Now, when we get to the kayak, it'll make a difference. So, we got our conduit in. Got that guy in. Jam this in. Now, before we put in our last layer, we're going to put the battery, we're going to hook up the battery cables. Make sure you go through red to red. black to black. And now we've got ourselves a battery box. Now, like I said, I'm gonna silicone the inside of this other one with the wire in there, just so that, yeah, so that it's watertight. I'll basically just gonna fill that. So that's our battery box. We can put our last one in, our last foam block, and it fills it in nicely. Let's pluck one of those, maybe one more. Yep. Now we've got our battery box. There is a little bit more room over here if you wanted to put something in there. I considered keeping my charger in here, but it turns out not to have enough room if I want to use the foam. That might change. I might find a different way to adhere this to the inside of the box. But now we've got our battery box. Shake it around, it doesn't move. I will fill that with silicone once I get that far. And then our charger just plugs right up to it. Okay? Battery charger plugs right on. Now, the next step is we're gonna put a quick connect on the end of our battery cable for the Garmin Striker 4. So we got the Garmin Striker 4, and we got our red cable and our black cable. Now, if you remember, with our battery box, this terminal is our black, I believe. Yep. So when I plug up this terminal is our black. The silver terminal is the black. Okay. So what we need to do is find a way to hook this black to this silver terminal and the red to this terminal. Can you guys see that? Okay, so we want the red to come to here and the black to come to here to go out to the Striker Garmin 4. This is the cable that came with the Garmin Striker 4. It has 4 wires on it by default. It's got the red, the black. It also had a blue and a brown. The blue and the brown for the Striker 4 you don't need, so I snipped them off and tucked them up underneath some heat shrink tubing just to clean it up a little bit. This is a fuse for that cable. The red comes out of it, so what we're going to do then is we've got this auxiliary cable. This is like a trickle charge cable for like a motorcycle battery. We're going to give ourselves quite a bit, but I don't need this fuse on here because the Striker 4 has already got a fuse on it. So we're gonna snip that off, get rid of it. I think that was $10 at O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's like an AutoZone. I don't know if you guys have O'Reilly's over by wherever you are, but so now we've got our cables, our cable and our quick connect. So now We're going to figure out which side needs to go to black. And we know it's our silver side. And we'll double check that. Where's my clamps? Okay, the clamps that came with the charger. Okay, now I've confused myself. So this goes to the charger. It's our black wire. So yeah, the silver tip is our black wire. So on this one, on our quick connect, we want to make sure that this side, because that's the mating side with the silver, right? This side goes to our black terminal. So for this, we're just going to use some butt connectors. I'll pull those out in a minute. Now this wire is quite a bit thinner than this wire. Maybe. Let's strip it off and find out here. Yeah, it's got this extra thick insulation here. Oh, it's not too much thicker. So while we're messing around with it, we're going to disconnect our battery. Okay. Now before we do anything else with this, I'm going to get a couple pieces of shrink tubing, put them on. We need another one here. Let's see if that's even going to be long enough. Let's pull that off. We'll just double it up here. And once again, we're using the marine shrink tubing. And we want to make sure that we can get our tubing around our butt connectors. That one's not going to work. Maybe that'll work. And then one more thing I want to do. Will this fit over two of these? Yeah, we can make that work. Okay. So we're going to take our larger piece of shrink tubing, bigger diameter, That's going to cover up both of our things, or both of our butt connectors. Maybe I'll use a longer one. I don't know yet, but I'm going to go a little bit longer than the butt connector itself, just so it covers up both ends. So we're going to put our big piece of heat shrink tubing over both wires and get it out of our way completely. This is our black wire to our Garmin Striker 4. I know that looks red. It's not. Okay, so now we've got our black wire in, our other black wire in, and since this is a red butt connector, we're going to use the spot with the red crimper. Now I like to crimp it out towards the end of one. Make sure the wire is going into the metal casing of the crimp. Now we're going to crimp that down. And it looks like it held pretty good. And then we'll just take our blue crimper and just give it a nice little scrunch right in the middle. And once again, I forgot to put my heat shrink tubing on. Okay, and then you put your big shrink tube all the way and get it out of the way. Then you make sure you put your other shrink tube on the wires. We'll go ahead and strip this one off real quick, get it done so that we can. All right, we got our butt connectors, we have our shrink tubes on. I'm gonna twist that up just so it makes it easier to get it into the butt connector. Jam it in. I like to try and get the plastic around the insulation of the wire. Just because of stress relief points. Use the crimper with the red dot. It's the smallest one. Just give it a little crimp there. Give it a little tug just to make sure that it's seated. Make sure your other wire's in and crimp that side too. Once again, give it a little tug, make sure, and then I always give it one more little pinch right in the middle, just to give it a little extra something, something. Okay. It's coming off the black, into the black, into the black. Okay. So I just was making sure that we've got it hooked up correctly. And we can slide our shrink tubing down and over our butt connector. Get that shrinking up. These larger shrink tubes take a little bit longer to get cinched down, but they'll get there. Just take your time. General rule of thumb, and what the package tells me, is that they shrink to 1/3 their original size. Now, because it has that goop inside of it, if you give it a little squeeze at the ends, it'll come out, and now you've got a waterproof connection. Now remember, we've got this other big piece of shrink tube that we're going to stick down over the entire thing just to kind of close it up. But I'll go ahead and do the next connection. Butt connector. Pushed it on. Push the other side in. Jam it in there pretty good. And crimp. Crimp. And then another crimp right in the middle, just to hold on to it really well. See, that didn't crimp down quite enough. Jam it in there and give it a little more. And now it's good and stuck, both sides. Let's make sure that this side is good. All right. And our shrink tube over the top of that butt connector. Alright, so now we've got our Garmin Striker 4 hooked up. And I'm going to bundle up these wires a little bit and give it a little added stress relief. If I can get this shrink tube over it all. if you can hear the rain out there. I was gonna try and get all this stuff done and get the boat out, or get the kayak out today, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Alright, so I think what I'll do is I'll heat shrink this around my connections, and then I'll probably just wrap the rest up in electrical tape. Again, give it a little squishy squish and squeeze that marine goop, or that goop that's in there. It's like a hot glue, I kind of figured out. And then it'll seal it up. Now we've got our Striker 4 cable attached to our quick cable, and let's give it a quick test. We're going to plug this guy into our power port on the back of the Striker 4. We've got our battery hooked up. Can't hook the battery up before putting it in the box. So feed our wires through. Battery. Black. Put this guy in place. That in like that. Tuck it all in nice and tight. Close up our battery case. Plug up our Striker 4. I already charged the battery once. Okay. And looks like we've got power. Look at that. So we've got that all set up. It works great. In the next video, stay tuned for that. We're going to get the battery box installed and all the right wires run, and we're going to do the transducer mount. So stick around for that, or stay tuned for that. I don't know when that'll go up, but I plan on doing it and videoing it today. So until next time, Fishing Dad.